this is going to be just like any other technological wave, where it's nice to think, oh, you make all these grandiose statements and the sky is falling and you'd better move now or you're going to get crushed. The reality is organizations and humans can only move so quickly. There are existing business models and processes in place, and they're going to experiment. Hello, and welcome to the Misadventures in Marketing podcast, brought to you by the American Marketing Association, San Francisco chapter. I'm Steve Haney, a fractional CMO in Silicon Valley.
And I'm Peter Farago, a high-tech marketer also in the Bay Area. Each week, Steve and I will come together to talk about something interesting in the world of high-tech marketing.
We share our own experiences running marketing teams with a special focus on technology startups, our successes, our failures, what worked, and what didn't. We'll also be inviting our CMO friends and other marketing colleagues onto the show every once in a while, and hopefully impart some wisdom along the way. Peter, what's going on?
It's another work week. At work, I'm working on rebuilding our website.
Always a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's actually I'm over the peak or the summit, and I'm sort of on the downhill in terms of what I consider to be the harder, more challenging alignment that you have to create around the story and the narrative and how we position stuff. So yeah, we're getting there. I'm excited.
This weekend was a big annual event in the Haney household. It's the beginning of Girl Scout cookie selling season. And my daughter is a cadet now. She's been a devoted Girl Scout for the majority of her life. And every year we have this annual ritual, which is actually a great marketing campaign that she becomes a part of every year. And that is to raise funds for her troop and a lot of great charitable causes through selling cookies. And so we went and we picked up, a couple dozen cases. And my daughter loves selling. She is a social creature. She just absorbs and thrives on being around other people and engaging with them. So for her, taking these cookies and going door to door in our neighborhood, even though now she's a relatively old Girl Scout, she's a teenager, it's just one of the things she loves doing. She loves knocking on doors, meeting new people. She's just a born salesman. But, talk about great marketing. I really didn't, even though I'm American, born and bred, Girl Scout cookies are part of the culture. I never really understood what it was about Girl Scout cookies that made them so profoundly culturally embedded. And then I went to a couple of my daughter's booths when she was 7, 8 years old, starting to sell cookies, and then going with her door to door and realizing that this adorable, cute little snaggletooth girl with her little Girl Scout vest on, trying to do a sales pitch, was so adorable that people could not resist buying cookies from her. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, these people are geniuses. They're marketing geniuses because everybody adores a little girl selling cookies for a good cause. And so, yeah, that was a big part of our weekend.
Yeah, they've done a good job with the brand, not to sound too marketing-ish, but, it has to do with, growth and development and self-esteem. And the cookies are good.
They're totally addictive.
Growing up in the United States, they have a good product. It's not, you don't get these and go, why did I buy these? It's like, okay, these are pretty solid. So it's a good product, a good enough product. They're not the highest end cookies on the planet, nor does anyone expect it, but they're really good for box cookies.
We are here today to talk not just about the brilliance of selling cookies with the Girl Scouts, but to discuss very hot current topic, which is AI and using AI specifically in marketing. The title of this episode is If You Cut an AI, Does It Bleed? And that's something that I came up with simply because, not that I doubt the ability of these technologies to be really effective, but just kind of hinting at the notion that are they ever going to be as nuanced as a human being in terms of interacting with other human beings to sell products, to emote, to draw people into your brand, and they can do really good stuff, but is it going to be good enough? So I thought what we would start with is actually an analogy that I go back to when I think about all the AI stuff over the past year or two. And this was that episode of Mad Men where photography as a new technology was coming in to the industry and displacing illustrators up until, 50s. For magazine ads, newspaper ads, photography simply wasn't scalable and cheap enough to use. So they had illustrators for ad production and, in print and, even graphics for the nascent television ads at the time. And then basically they were all put out of work. And it's a wonderful episode. It's really poignant. This guy trying to sell his illustrations, and he's just, the technology has just sidelined his whole career. And the question here is, that will definitely happen for a lot of roles that exist today. The question is, how much it's going to happen, and what are those jobs that, the bots will take over. Certainly, I don't think they're going to completely replace humans, although I would love your thoughts on this, Peter. But they will be, co-workers, so to speak, that humans will be deploying and setting out to do various tasks. Some of them kind of more, I don't want to say under the radar, but more about, plumbing, data enrichment and cleaning up copy, which they do really well, versus actually, autonomous bots that go out and completely replace on a human interaction level what a good BDR or marketing manager does. So thoughts?
Yeah, it's actually, I'm at an AI-based startup and with a lot of smart PhDs. And we've actually just been talking about this. There is a large number of technological shifts that have taken place, for 1,000 years. We were talking about the printing press, of all things, that at the time was an innovation that displaced some jobs, but also created others. So we net out exactly the way you've described it, which is that it's going to offload what we think is more tedious work.
Right.
And then it's going to create new opportunities. So to finish off the printing press idea, back then, scribes were considered highly skilled workers who were both literate and artistically capable, and they had to hand copy
Illuminated
documents.
books. Yep.
Yeah, because, and I know that you're a big, not only sort of studied English as a major, but you love books and you have a side business that you've been working on around books and that sort of thing. But the long story short is that demand from having to tediously hand copy these documents, went away because the cost of distribution plummeted, right? The printing press enabled us to then recreate and share knowledge more easily. So
it automated information dissemination to a certain extent.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. And so, we were actually talking about for economics and business nerds, we were talking about Jevons paradox, which is, when a raw material or an input, becomes increasingly available, that without going into it creates a huge chain reaction. So the paradox is that the good actually usually becomes more in demand because it gets so overused. But the point here is that a whole class of jobs were created, authors, journalists, teachers, and so on, right? Because now that bottleneck of disseminating information was knocked out. So was that like the end of a bunch of jobs to some extent? But it became then the creation of a lot more jobs. And that's been happening over and over and over. And I think that's what people, the internet and newspapers, for example, is a more recent one. I remember growing up, everybody had a newspaper. You used to have a newspaper on the train or the BART you'd pick up. They used to calculate recirculation is what they call it. Someone else reading the
Right.
paper. It was a whole, there's a whole generation of us who had BMX bikes and delivered newspapers to people's houses, right? And you'd have
Right.
big, huge stacks of newspapers dropped on the corner, and that whole world is gone. But when email came around, did it affect the U.S. Postal Service? Yes. Mail carriers did not need to hand deliver or transport or take your physically written letter in an envelope and move it over to someone else somewhere else in the world, right? Like I don't know how many young adults would know how to address an envelope right now, the
Right.
proper way to address an envelope because the delivery changed. And so lots of
Well,
examples, but AI is not going to replace everything. AI can replace some things that will help augment other things. We think right now more in terms of co-pilot, and we think more in terms of augmentation. And we
yeah.
think also as there's some creative destruction, that implies that, yes, some things will get offloaded or replaced, but they're usually more tedious tasks, honestly. And it will open up the opportunity to enable humans to do more of what they can do better,
Better. Right.
more creatively.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you for winning the podcast episode today with your big highfalutin Javon's paradox reference.
That's right.
I'm not sure I can
right.
top that and your big SAT brain. But I'm going to try to with bringing up, of course, the Luddites and the loom, which kicked off the Industrial Revolution in England in the 17th century. Luddites were followers of a mythical figure called General Ludd. And it's when, all these folks who were in the original cottage industry, which was making fabrics and carpets and rugs, they did these by hand in their houses and sold these items. But then the loom came along and automated all of this, these big factories cranking out, all these amazing tapestries and whatnot. And the Luddites would go into the loom factories with their hammers and their pitchforks and torches, and they would destroy the things. And of course, now we call anybody who doesn't like any kind of technological progress a Luddite. And so, yeah, definitely these ways, whether it's the printing press or the loom or, computers in general and the internet and AI, anything, robotics, of course, anything that takes the dreary stuff away from humans and, does it without requiring this whole other set of humans. And of course, like you said, there's disruption. There's disruption in labor markets. And I don't know. I mean, who do you think's going to go away? I told you when we were in the green room, as they say, and for my sister Monica, just so she understands in podcasting term, that's the chatter that the hosts have before they start recording. So when Peter and I were in the green room, we were talking about this webinar, this group presentation of marketing executives I attended online, and one executive there talking about how many BDRs, and that stands for business development reps, or a guy or gal who gets on a phone and starts making outbound calls to sales prospects, how many BDRs they had laid off thanks to these AI BDRs. So, this stuff is real. And, obviously a lot of folks are indeed going to get displaced because they're automations, AI automations that can do that better.
I like the General Luddite or General Ludd historical point to start with. I did not know that. That's very cool. I use the term Luddite all the time. We are in that phase now of having to think about how to learn and apply this new technology for the field of profession of marketing. Professional marketers need to kind of view this time as a moment of truth. I think even I personally was looking at AI in the earlier, so call it 2-ish years ago, 18 months ago. I was looking at it as, I don't know, like it's the new thing. It's going to do some things. And I played around with it a little bit. There's the text generation stuff, and there's also the image generation stuff that actually work on quite different models underneath. But basically, things that can be generated pretty automatically or edited as you apply that to, say, a BDR, a process of sending sequences of outbound cold emails typically. It's like, yeah, you can use that. You can use you can use ChatGPT 4 or any of these, the Anthropic stuff, Claude. You can use these things to tighten up your messaging. But now we're getting into the stage of, can we automate that? Can we set up a sequence? Can, I don't know, an AI agent go on to, say, LinkedIn, knowing it's looking for a certain kind of prospect based on, say, a job title or an industry or some kind of firmographics, which I have found always a little clumsy. But basically, the person you're looking at in the market, the target, is possibly interested, right? So can you automate based on maybe a set of rules, which isn't that high tech or AI, but can you figure out, at least in the initial outreach, who should be reached out to, that list building, and then have some data enrichment, have something enough that about them to send out what feels like a human written compelling outreach. That's going to not outperform, but that, from a volume standpoint, that chat bot or agent, sort of better than just a straight up chat bot is going to be able to put out a lot of volume.
Something like Naro to produce, customized sales enablement stuff and content to attach to those emails. Right.
Yeah, the point is that you've got to have something that feels natural and compelling to the recipient, right? And that's where I find there's going to be an interesting intersection of, there's automating the process, the process of sending a number of messages to different people over different platforms and channels, whether it's email, right, or LinkedIn direct messages, or now it's X, it used to be Twitter, whatever place, whatever channel you're sending a message to somebody. Can you identify that they are potentially, a good prospect, and can you reach out to them in a way that seems, natural and compelling, and increase the odds they open it?
Right. Well, you're nibbling around the edges of, I think, the bigger question of automation versus autonomy, right? So certainly you can automate at a much higher level with these tools, but then when you give the BDR autonomy to take it all the way, so to speak, or as far as possible before having to hand it over to a human. And I think that's where things get a little rough. Again, we were talking before we started recording, you were saying how you got you noticed on LinkedIn a post about a really bad AI generated email, prospecting email. And you just don't want those kind of things to happen, because that really destroys and damages the brand.
This is the challenge, right? There is an assumption that BDRs and SDRs are doing a good job at reaching out to prospects without kind of burning them, right? Burning up the opportunity, because you can have a group of folks doing that, but they also could be doing a poor job. Or you could have, a more consistent, programmable sorts of self-correcting agent do that. But I guess my point is, at the end of the day, you're selling to a human being, and, the human being has to react positively, that's the hope, to your attempts. And maybe you can run experimentation more efficiently with an agent, and it's going to be more consistent for sure. But there is still some figuring it out.
If it's a B2B enterprise tech, it's not just a human, it's a human and a constellation of other people in the company, because it's usually not one person making the decision, right? So that's really when the human element has to get involved on the sales end. And again, they need to be supported with marketing materials and sales enablement to land that deal at the end of the day. And that's certainly not something, at least right now, that an AI would have the nuance or the intelligence to pull off.
The real differentiator is what the data pipeline ingests. So they're like we have a an intelligent agent that handles advanced technical support questions. At the end of the day, we want to be able to say, I don't know the answer. And we also want to say, or I only know the answer with a certain amount of confidence, but here's what we do know to help you on your way. We also need to know when to bring the human in the loops. And so it's like, well, how do you decide when to hand it off, right? And this is where we're seeing a lot of poor executions of it in the market right now. So if I think about in framing what we're talking about right now, I'm thinking about, of course, over time, an agent that can do a good job, not all the miscommunications and the laughable messages that we see, right? And that's kind of where I think things are. I saw today a very prominent recruiter in the go-to-market space that I've known for a long time at one of the top firms, and she just put out almost a call to, I don't know, she called it marketing leaders, the moment of truth has arrived. There's a whole layer of CMOs out there that if they don't think about and experiment with applying this new technology to call it their workflows, they're in trouble. Like they're going to get wiped out. They're going to be Luddites.
Well, can I just make one comment about what this, recruiter said? This is going to be just like any other technological wave, where it's nice to think, you make all these grandiose statements and the sky is falling and you'd better move now or you're going to get crushed. The reality is organizations and humans can only move so quickly. There are existing business models and processes in place, and they're going to experiment. So it doesn't matter how fast or how quickly, this stuff is or isn't happening. That's the supply side. The demand side can still only move so quickly because it's not going to burn up its existing cost structures and business models just because there's a new shiny object, which has the potential to make your organization be more efficient, more profitable, etc. So, I understand what you're saying. I sympathize, and listen, as somebody who's marketed early stage or, technologies for decades, I do this all the time too, right? It's like, this is the next big thing. It's the next wave. But then you run into the hard, cold reality of organizations can only move so quickly simply due to the physics of their business model. And so while I appreciate it, and I believe, this is a fundamental underlying technology that's going to affect everything that we do. Companies' mouths are only so big. There's only so much they can eat at one time, right? They can't. They're not infinitely able to ingest new processes, new technologies, and turn everything over on a dime. Yeah. Just doesn't work that way.
It is interesting from a selling standpoint. Positioning is hiring is the word I'm seeing. Oh, you should hire this SDR, or if you're growing fast but don't have headcount, use our solution, like hire us, and they're implying it's trying to find ways of talking about this being the equivalent of a headcount without scaring people that it's replacing jobs. It's a diffusion of innovation. So the supply side, we can offer it, we can invent it, but people aren't necessarily going to adopt it or start using it, or they do it in waves. And there are, everyone's heard the term early adopter. So there are folks more open to trying that.
It gets back to William Gibson, who wrote Neuromancer. You've probably heard this classic phrase of his, the future's already here. It's just unevenly distributed. So,
right. Well, that's interesting you say that, because I'm thinking about, okay, I'm at a small company and I want to be able to, say, accelerate our go-to-market. And, some of the things that get in the way are filling top of the funnel leads, as an example. Yeah. And if I can support that with technology instead of headcount, that's an advantage I can gain.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping to unevenly distribute it in my direction and harness it in a way that's better than another guy, because I'm looking for edge, right? So this is the other challenge too, when things are a little bit turbulent, with the new technology being available, and the performance of it is uneven, meaning like I can use one service and get a stupid message that goes to somebody and irritates them versus something that's well done. You've gotta like be careful not to spend too much time trying everything, right? At some point you still have to get the job done, and testing a bunch of stuff can be very time consuming.
This episode of Misadventures in Marketing is brought to you by Section, the leading online business school for the age of AI. Every ambitious person deserves a great strategic education. People who want to be great at their jobs now, not on someone else's schedule. That's where Section comes in. Section gives you the tools, frameworks, and strategies to get to work right away with no gatekeeping involved. Section knows from experience that AI has massive implications for marketers. Not only do they upskill 15,000 students a month, their own marketing team scored an expert-level AI proficiency when tested. They're excited to bring even more marketers into the AI era, so they're offering an exclusive 20% discount to AMA SF members for their AI for Marketers workshop and the AI crash course. Just go to sectionschool.com and sign up using the code AMASF20. That's AMASF20 to receive a 20% discount on the AI for Marketers workshop and the AI crash course. Section, the leading online business school for real people. Education isn't just about what you learn, it's about what you do with it.
Getting back to the basic thing about humankind being tool makers, and we do as much as we can to automate the we really don't want to do every day. And before that was labor, hopefully cheap labor, and then you get the robots to do it, and then hopefully those folks can upskill and start doing other things, like you said before, creating new jobs and new opportunities when you were referring to the printing press and
Right.
the job growth. I mean, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but at least in the United States right now, where Peter and I reside, unemployment is at the lowest ever. I mean, we basically got a full employment economy right now, and there's technology and automation everywhere. So, yes, you're going to go and rather than hire a human copywriter, you're going to hire an AI copywriter, et cetera, et cetera. But then, what are the new opportunities there? Maybe you have a copywriting editor role that manages all the AIs, and it's a small agency, and they're writing, one person employing 20 different AIs is writing copy for 100 firms and creating untapped demand that never would have been exploited because we just didn't have the right marketing materials and messaging and copy to reach those new financial opportunities.
Copywriting, writing marketing copy is an area that I've probably spent the most time in with respect to AI. I think I mentioned I'm having to redo the website, and so there's a lot of writing and a lot of thinking. And I'm using ChatGPT 4. I pay for the now there's 2 pro levels, the lower pro level, and I find that it is helpful, but more around editing.
Yep.
It can't come up with a new idea, of course, and it will stray a little bit from my intention. And the other thing, of course, I've done is I call it training it on my voice, which I don't know is quite right, but I basically uploaded a bunch of written stuff that I've done. I put it into a project. It's similar to a Notebook LM for Google, right?
And you tell it, write like me.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a custom rag for folks who don't know, but basically you're constraining the information that goes in. and so that it's not so generalized, it's a little narrower. And I also uploaded the Elements of Style by Strunk and White and some other things, and also information about the company, and because I'm trying to create a product page, I'm trying to create a home page, but all of that is like, I find it really helpful to give me a full draft of a page, and then I have to go in and tune it, and then I say, okay, let's work on this section, and then I work on that, and I go back and forth. So for me, as a person who can write end to end and think end to end, it is very helpful to have it give me a structure pretty fast, give me a total first pass, help me tune and cut word count down. But I'm still driving pretty hard is my point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, I've subscribed to Grammarly for years, and it's only gotten better with its AI elements. And I love the way it clarifies and cleans up my copy. Love it. Apple now, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, they have a whole bunch of writing tools now integrated into the OS that do very much, the kind of stuff that Grammarly does. It does a good job as well. I like Grammarly more. But the point is having it do all that kind of stuff, yeah, it's pretty good. But on the front end, I may use Microsoft Copilot because it's part of my Microsoft 365
I'm using
subscription.
Copilot.
I've got Microsoft Copilot because I get that they basically, license Chat GPT's higher levels. Anyway, so I'll use that to kind of do the idea generation, the framing generation, a lot of research, helping me clarify my ideas, and it's great. But there's no spiciness there, Peter. There's no excitement, the enthusiasm, authenticity, right? The spirit, the spark, the fire. I feel like I still need it to be there. Now, look, that could just be me as a human or the type of person I am who needs to know that fire of the human spirit is in there. So that, it can help me kind of like on the cleaning up and post-production end of things. But that initial bit, like you're saying, I really feel that I need to own. But I'm kind of weird about this. It's like, getting a meal from McDonald's versus making the meal myself. I'm going to be classified as a real Bay Area psycho weirdo. But I believe that when I make a meal, especially for friends, that something of me goes into that dish I'm making because I'm making it for them. Right? That there's something unique and human about the act of, when does the salt go in? When do you turn on the heat? When does the garlic go in? How much sauce do you apply and when?
But that's craft,
exactly. But see, I think there's something spiritual. I think there's actually something happening there.
No, there's a gesture. It's more to do with you're applying craft and it's a gesture to the others, right? That you're taking time. It's like getting a beautifully handwritten note versus an email, right? Like,
but I think it's the same with marketing. I think it's the same with marketing,
care, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I just think that, a marketing campaign that I put together and inject with my, my humanity, my authenticity is going to be just way better than something an AI can spit out, which again, listen, you go to a McDonald's. I don't care what anybody says. McDonald's is delicious. I love McDonald's. It's a meal, right? It may not be the most nutritious, but it's processed, but
it's good.
And then you can go to a really good restaurant, right? And then you can go to the French Laundry, right? So really good restaurant, French Laundry. And then there's a home cooked meal, which to me is at the very top of the pyramid. And each one of those levels, there's a certain amount of a human spirit that's injected into it. And I just feel that for many aspects of these tools, it's going to be, McDonald's is going to be fine. it's going to be fine and it's going to do a decent job. If you really want to produce great campaigns that are compelling and that touch the human spirit and solve the problems of whoever your prospect is going to be, I just don't think you can, at the end of the day, remove that human element. At some level, it's got to be there. And I think the question that you and I are going to be asking for the next God knows how many years around this technology, and I think you kind of touched on this at the beginning of the podcast. What are those touch points for the humans to interject themselves such that you're doing a great job at promoting, branding, selling that product or service?
Yeah, there are different levels of craft that I think will be applied, and it's going to come down to, it's cheaper to manufacture this, if you will, this output in a more mass market way, but it's going to be more cookie cutter. I think there's a big promise of personalization, but I still think that's difficult. Marketers have been trying to personalize for a long time. Since the beginning of time, right? Because you have a market, you have to segment the market, you have to target certain segments, and then you have to kind of by channel. So it's a tailoring exercise, and sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes it's not, depending on what's the price point. So I think that this will be a mass market thing. It's like another good example is Industrial Revolution. There are things that can be manufactured at scale, and then there's some things that are still handcrafted that are quite different, right? And so your point is well taken. Is it going to be good enough? So these tools, if they're effective enough, if they drive the outcomes the marketer wants, they're going to use them more. I don't know that we can totally achieve, the dream. We've been talking about quote unquote micro targeting for decades.
Yeah. Well, and to get back to your fancy schmancy, highfalutin Javon's paradox thing, when you've got a McDonald's on every corner, you also have obesity because it is very accessible and it's very cheap and it produces really bad side effects. And if there's just too much of this stuff, at what point does it, on some level, sicken the marketing effort such that it's bad for the business, not good for the business?
Well, what people want is not always good for them, right?
At the end of the day, is that going to help your business thrive or not? So, but I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to revisit this topic many times.
Oh yeah, it'll be an ongoing topic.
Excellent. All right, Peter, unless you have any more pretentious words to use, I think that this is a good place to stop.
Yeah, frameworks are good. There's it's like theory. It's like you're ejecting math or something, like the discovery of science or math. That we should leverage that.
Yes. No, I listen. I am not anti-intellectual at all. I just like making fun of you.
For me, it's just another Tuesday, Steve.
Yeah,
comes to me naturally.
Okay, man.
All right, man.
Good stuff. See you next week.
All right, see you.